Mercury in Virgo, September 2nd through September 18th, messenger of the eclipses. Hello, my name is Eliane Nicole. I'm your astrologer and tarot reader, and in this video, I'm going to talk about Mercury's quick zip through Virgo, his home sign, where he is also exalted. So, Mercury is the planetary messenger who has to do with how we think and how we speak and how we listen and how we learn. So this is, a time for clear thinking and strategizing. And I want to talk about that, but I also want to talk about the important aspects that he's making and why I think it's important to pay attention to these dates as messages for the eclipse season that's coming. And so get out your calendars, because I'm going to give you important dates, and Mercury is all about dates and our calendar and our schedule as well. And I'm going to talk about which signs that this transit will be affecting the most personally, or who might see the strongest expressions of this transit in their life over these next couple of weeks. And then I'm going to quickly take it through all 12 rising signs at the end. I'm going to try and make it quick because I don't want this to be a long video, so it's just going to be really brief notes for each rising sign. So listen to the entire introduction, and then I'll put chapters below in my YouTube to go straight to your rising. You can listen to your rising and your sun. And if you're watching on YouTube, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel. Please hit the notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. Please like, please comment, please share. It's very helpful to me in the algorithm and in growing my community and growing my business and putting me in a position to continue to give these free astrological offerings. I'm just a little bit above 900 followers on YouTube. I would really like to break the milestone of 1,000 by my birthday. My birthday is October 8th. As a birthday present, please subscribe to my channel. But yes, without further ado, I'm going to get into the translation. So Mercury is at home in Virgo. Mercury is exalted in Virgo. So this fares well for mercurial topics in our lives in general, for everyone throughout this transit. Clearer thinking, just kind of being more streamlined and efficient in your thought process and in your communication, whether that's written or verbal or otherwise. And so that's good. Our minds are strong now, and it's a good time for rational, kind of methodical thinking. And this is important because Mercury is the host to the solar eclipse in Virgo that is coming on the 21st of September. But Mercury is also the host to the South Node, who is involved in the lunar eclipse because it will be opposing the moon during the lunar eclipse. And so Mercury in Virgo this time, I believe, has very strong messages for us about eclipse season. And not only are these messages foreshadowing in some cases and in some ways, but I think that they're also kind of instructive, like spiritually instructive, of yes, there's a lot going on in the day-to-day because these are busy signs that are involved and busy planets that are involved in this eclipse season. But there's also a higher spiritual meaning that is going on, that something for us to be learning and kind of evolving and growing from throughout all the what may seem like a lot of chaos could ensue during this eclipse season. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That being said, the very first aspect, well, before I get into the aspects, let me just say that obviously Mercury traveling through Virgo is going to be very important to anyone who has Virgo, Sun, Moon, Rising, Mercury, or really any Virgo placements, because at some point between September 2nd and September 18th through the journey, Mercury will be conjunct your placement. And on that day, for you in particular, there will be a very important message about eclipse season. But I'm giving broad strokes in this reading to capture as many people as possible. It gets so specific when you get a one-on-one reading with an astrologer. That's why I encourage you to contact me for a reading. I would love to read for you. I read on Zoom, so I can read for people anywhere in the country and anywhere in the world. There will be a link in the description below of my YouTube to go straight to my website, Eliane Nicole, and book a reading with me. But in the meantime and in between time, you know, aside from Virgos experiencing this very strongly, anyone with Pisces placements, Sun, Moon, Rising, or any Pisces placement, at some point Mercury will be opposing your placement from September 2nd to the 18th. And for you, this is going to be a very important eclipse message as well. And this is going to come through oppositional forces that you experience, or an obstacle, or a block, or a rejection, or a no, or a hard stop, or a wall of some kind. Gemini and Sagittarius rising, also mutable signs, are going to experience this in a square, you know. And I'm going to talk about the Gemini square very soon in this reading. But first, I'll talk about the Sagittarius square. And this is really like, you know, it's a reality check for people with Sagittarius placements as Mercury crosses your placements, as Mercury gets to your degree. You know, there may be a vision, and this is bringing the reality, or, you know, this is maybe someone raining on your fun parade with reality, or, you know, something like that. There, you know, so for Capricorn and Taurus placements, this is going to be a very fortifying transit as it crosses your placements at some point between September 2nd and September 18th. And, you know, Sun, Moon, Rising, Mercury, any other placements in Capricorn or Taurus, this is very clear thinking. This is a great time for, you know, getting really organized and getting prepared, you know, for the new start that is coming in the house that Mercury is traveling through your chart. And again, I'm going to do the 12 rising signs when I get to the end, so stick around. And then for, you know, Cancer and Scorpio, I think that this Mercury transit can be very creative. And, you know, if you're an artist, then obviously I think that you're having very, like, you know, fertile ideas, and in terms of, you know, that can really grow and really take form in the material world. And even if you're not an artist, you can be creative in, you know, whatever it is that you do in your life. You can be creative around your home. You can be creative in your work, whatever it is. We can bring creativity, and this transit for Scorpio and Cancer placements will provide opportunities for that, but you have to interact. It's a sextile to your placements. So that's the broad overview of the signs that'll affect the most. And then for, I'll just say the quincunx. I'm getting really more into the quincunx because, I mean, I really do. It is, you know, I do see it manifesting, even though it's considered one of the more minor aspects. But if you have a, you know, Aries, or Aquarius placements, at some point this Virgo Mercury will quincunx. And so you may need to adjust your thinking in some area. It's nothing that's life or death to you. It's subtle, it's minor. You may not even notice it. But yeah, there may be some uncomfortability or irritation. Something is out of alignment, causing you to need to kind of maybe like realign your thinking or adjust your thinking or adjust your communication style or approach in a certain situation. And now, without further ado, I'm going to get into the aspects. So the first aspect, so these are the important dates to remember. Get out your notepads for everybody. As Mercury entered, so Mercury entered Virgo on the 2nd and was immediately in an applying square to Uranus and Gemini. And the exact square formed on the 3rd. I am actually recording this video on the 4th. I normally like to record my videos and put them out before the transits, but in this case, I did not get a chance to do it. But I still think it's important to do this video because I do believe this Mercury is the messenger of the eclipses, and the eclipses are ahead of us on September 7th and September 21st, respectively. So, but this is a perfect opportunity for me to remind you all that astrology is just as effective and useful as a reflective tool as it is a forecasting tool, or even a tool of really understanding the quality of the present moment. So astrology can time travel. And with that, I'm saying, because I'm recording this on September 4th, the exact hit of the aspect to Uranus was September 3rd. So you may want to look back on September 3rd. Was there some kind of surprise communication, unexpected communication, unexpected news? Perhaps it has to do with a friend, a sibling, a neighbor. It may have to do with health. It could have to do with something to do with your daily routine in some way. But basically, whatever that surprise kind of unexpected communication is, take note of it, because even though it happened on September 3rd, it reverberates throughout Mercury being in Virgo all the way through the 18th, and it plays a part in the eclipse story. Also remember Virgo and Gemini, Mercury and Uranus. Mercury is the everyday mind, Uranus is the higher mind. So this is a very mental transit, a very conversational transit. And so that's where to look. But besides that, they're immutable signs. And so, the communication that's happening, it can be fickle, it can be two-faced, it can be, people talking out the sides of both talking out both sides of the neck, or whatever the saying is. And what's said now could change, because there's a lot of mind changing going on through this whole cycle, and people going back and forth and this or that, and it's a very unpredictable and kind of back and forth, fickle kind of in communication cycle. And because Mercury was into the square to Uranus as soon as it entered, it colors the whole tone. Also, the new moon of Virgo, August 22nd, which we are still in the cycle of, it's culminating with the Pisces lunar eclipse on September 7th. But that new moon, August 22nd, was at 0 degrees Virgo, and that was really kind of the beginning of eclipse season. And so Mercury moving into this position, the messenger, he's got messages for us about the eclipse, about what's going to happen, about how we're supposed to be handling it, about what we're supposed to be learning from it. Mercury has messages, and so one of the big messages, September 3rd, look to your communications on that day. The next big message from Mercury on a general level, again, in your own chart, if you have planets at degrees between 1 degree and 18 degrees, you're going to have personal things going on in between these more general transits I'm talking about again. But so on September 11th, Mercury is opposing the North Node in Pisces, and this is just after the lunar eclipse. So this lunar eclipse, which I'm going to do a whole video on, but I'll just say it's bringing up a lot of emotion. It could be bringing up a lot of the shadow, you know, grief, pain, emotion. There's a lot. There's also a lot of compassion and a lot of empathy and a lot of emotional support as well. So don't let me scare you. Stay tuned for the lunar eclipse video. Watch the new moon of Virgo video. All of this is to prepare you for this very intense eclipse season that's coming. But as Mercury opposes the North Node, you know, this is a difficult transit because this is like a big reality check in terms of the dream, you know, and this is probably receiving communication of some kind that is presenting what appears to be an obstacle to the dream, an obstacle to the vision. For many people. For other people, it is a kind of a communication that may create a crisis in faith or belief in something. This could be spiritual, this can be romantic, it can be artistic, you know, and it's going to vary for different people. This is kind of a big one, and at the same time Mercury will be conjunct the South Node, so there's definitely like, you know, some kind of like, feels like a final goodbye, like a final conversation or a final letter or a final communication of some kind that's happening on the 11th. Now on the 17th, and obviously this Pisces and Virgos, particularly people with planets at 18 degrees, but anywhere really from 15 to 21 degrees this is going to be very personal for you. And also people with 15 to 21 degrees Gemini or Sagittarius placements. And then on the 17th, he's opposing Saturn. And this is really announcing big news of the solar eclipse, which is a trippy solar eclipse because it's a beginning and an ending. You know, the solar eclipse will make I didn't even talk about the opposition to Saturn. Oh, I did. Yeah, so exactly. The solar eclipse is going to make a hard square to Saturn. So that's why when Mercury opposes Saturn on the 17th, this is a big message about, you know, another challenge that we will be facing at the eclipse, you know, as we make this new start. And so, you know, write down those dates. And now I'm going to quickly go through the rising signs. If you're an Aries rising, Mercury in Virgo is traveling through your house of health. And so the news that you get is coming from the third house, the shocking news at the beginning of the cycle. And that could have to do with something around your neighborhood, your community, your daily commute, your siblings, your friends, you know, elementary school, high school, written work, or short trips. And Mercury is delivering messages to you through the 2nd through the 18th about this, you know, he's giving you some signs of this big new start also happening in your 6th house of health. It's also the house of your daily routine. It's also the house of small pets, co-workers, staff. So the surprising communication and the new start could be happening in any of those areas. The lunar eclipse will be in your 12th house, bringing up a lot of unconscious material for you to deal with. For Taurus rising, Mercury is traveling through your 5th house of children, of fun, pleasure, joy, your hobbies. It can be sex or affairs or nightlife. It can also be your creative projects. The surprising communication is coming from your 2nd house of money and resources. But the new start that Mercury is telling you about is in the same house, the 5th house, with all the topics that I just mentioned. The lunar eclipse will be happening in your 11th house, and I'll talk about that more later. For Gemini rising, Mercury is traveling through your 4th house, giving you messages about home, family, the ancestors, real estate, residence, security, wealth, maybe your body. Any of those topics, Mercury is giving you some useful information for a huge new start and a big ending that's coming in that area for you around September 21st. And you know, the dates that I mentioned in the intro are the key dates to watch out for, where Mercury is giving you this information. The square to Uranus is happening in your 1st house. You may be the wild card because Uranus is in your 1st house. You may be the one delivering the surprising communication. So yeah, but you know, this is on your axis of, the eclipse season is on your axis of home and career, Gemini rising. For Cancer rising, Mercury is traveling through your 3rd house of your daily commute and your neighborhood, your siblings, also short trips, sometimes writing projects. So, you know, for Cancer rising, this could be a really great time for writing for you, actually, as Mercury is traveling through that house, because Mercury in Virgo is at home and it's such clear thinking, and you have your Cancer placements and it's very fertile and clear. You know, this can also be having to do with, if you have children, it might have something to do with something going on for them in their elementary school or high school, and a big new start that's happening, but also an ending that's happening in that area for them. If you're traveling, this could have to do with information around a short trip that you are taking, and there might be something around that. So that's Cancer rising. For Leo rising, it's in your 2nd house of money and resources. Mercury is traveling through there. So you're getting information about your financial life, and you're communicating about that. And it's great because it's very clear communication, organized and streamlined communication. But there is some shocking news that's coming from a friend or an organization or a group that you belong to, possibly. And that could somehow be affecting your finances, and then it could also just be that you know, that there's something that you've been aspiring to or hoping for, and there is a shakeup with that, you know, aspiration and your financial situation at this time. But a big new start is happening in your financial life, a letting go, a releasing, but also a big new start. Virgo rising, this is in your 1st house, the most personal house. This is you. So you know, your thinking is clear, your communication is great at this time. You may be dealing with a shocking, unexpected communication that happens at work, or around your career somehow, or your status or public profile on the 3rd. And, you know, Mercury is giving you some useful information to take with you into eclipse season, which is really going to be about you and your relationships. Stay tuned for the eclipse videos. Libra rising. So Mercury is traveling through your 12th house, and this may be like on a very surface level, somebody talking about you behind your back. It is the house of hidden enemies during this period, but it can also be that, you know, you can be talking to the other side at this time. You can be really channeling and be very psychic or talking. You know, the 12th house is the liminal space between life and death, and sometimes where, you know, spirits and otherworldly figures reside. Your dream life can be very communicative to you at this time. You may be feeling like spending some time alone in your thoughts. Yeah, the surprise communication, again, it could be coming from the other side, but it could also be coming from like overseas, or it could be about publishing or broadcasting or some kind of cross-cultural situation. It could be spiritual or religious in nature. It could have to do with higher education. And yeah, so there's a big new start happening for you internally, you know, Libra rising. Scorpio rising, Mercury's traveling through your house of friends and business associates, and so this could be a very kind of busy and social time for you. There could be some surprising communication regarding joint finances that comes in and affects a friendship, or entangled finances somehow. It could be loans, it could be debts, it could be inheritances, anything where there's shared finances. You know, so there's a new start, and there's a letting go happening in the areas of friends for you. There's some challenges happening in the areas of friends for you if you're a Scorpio rising, but there's also a big new start happening in the friends. So you may be meeting somebody who is actually going to be playing a very significant role in your life going forward. The initial interaction may have some adversities or challenges around it to overcome. And Sagittarius rising, Mercury is traveling through your house of career and attainment, status and reputation. So this is at work, you know, so this is a great time for being very efficient in your thinking and in your communication at work. But it does seem like there is, in the beginning of this transit, a surprising kind of communication coming from your spouse or your partner that shakes up things around work, how you're thinking about things, how you're communicating about things. And and this carries through into eclipse season, and, you know, some kind of karmic turn of life taking place between your work and home life. And I'll speak more to that in the eclipse videos, but I'm trying to wrap this one up, so stay tuned for my eclipse videos. Capricorn rising, Mercury is traveling through your 9th house, and you know, this can be a very spiritual time where you can feel very tuned in to God and to your higher power. Mercury will be trining your placements. This is a great time for written, verbal, any kind of communication really for Capricorns. Uranus in Gemini is in your house of health, so there could be some surprising news around your health that's coming through, but it doesn't look like anything that's like death-defying, but it is going to require some kind of adjustment, probably to your thinking and possibly to, you know, your lifestyle in some way. And I'll speak to this more in the eclipse videos that are coming, but you know, the 9th house, 3rd house axis is really lit up for you, so there's a lot here about possibly education or traveling, and things in these areas could be disrupted or could have some unexpected plot twists during this time, but you look very like equipped and fortified And you know, you have the creativity, the ingenuity, the work ethic. You have everything in place. So I'm not really worried about Capricorn so much during this eclipse season, as not I'm not worried about any of the signs, but Capricorn, it's not as hard on you, Capricorn rising, as it is on others. Aquarius rising, Mercury's traveling through your 8th house of other people's money. And so there's a lot of communication right now about, if you're married, it's your joint finances with your spouse or your partner, but it can also have to do with things like inheritances or wills, loans, tax, debt, settlements, anything where you have financial entanglements with others. There's a lot of communication about that. And but Mercury's in Virgo and exalted, so it looks like the communication is clear and organized and streamlined and happening in a very efficient way. But there is a surprise communication that's coming from your 5th house. Now, this is the house of children, so this could have to do with your kids if you have kids. If you don't have kids, this is also the house of creative projects, fun, pleasure, joy, hobbies, sometimes sex and romance. So there could be an unexpected kind of communication or plot twist coming from that area that somehow plays into affecting the joint finances and brings a challenge. But and then there's also going to be a really big new start happening in the joint finances department of your life, but also a big ending happening in the joint finances of your life further ahead at the solar eclipse of September 21st. So in the meantime, Mercury is giving you some very important messages about what that is and how to deal with it and why this is happening, you know, the 2nd through the 18th. And then finally, Pisces rising. It's in your, Mercury is traveling through your 7th house of relationships and long-term commitments. So this is actually a really great time for clear, honest, rational communication with your spouse or your partner. Mercury is in Virgo, Mercury's exalted in Virgo. But there is some surprising news coming from the 4th house, which could be about your home, about your parents, about the family, about the homeland. Something surprising and unexpected communication around September 3rd that creates a challenge or a conflict in, you know, your long-term relationship, whether that's your spouse, your long-term partner, or otherwise. And so that challenge reverberates through the whole time Mercury is traveling through Virgo, September 2nd to September 18th. And Mercury is, you know, speaking to you about what is going to happen through the eclipse portal, this very karmic turning point that's coming around your relationship and your own sense of self and your home, and how all these topics are kind of coming together for this kind of karmic turning point coming up in the eclipse portal, September, 7th to 21st, 2025. So that was all the rising signs. In conclusion, I just want to say that this is a very dynamic point in the year. This is a great time to get a reading for any sign. I read on Zoom, so I can read for people anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. I will put a link to book a reading with me at my website, elianenicole.com, in the description notes. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will be back soon with an eclipse video. Finally, time to just get into the eclipses.